Welcome to another episode of the Ambitious Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Sabine, the Purpose Lawyer. Thank you for listening and thank you for helping me be on purpose. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about protecting your digital assets. I know we started this conversation a few weeks ago, just kind of, talking about educating yourself, but I know many of you are already in this space trying to figure it out. And I want you to think about, what does that mean or what's it going to look like for you to actually protect these things that you're, acquiring now and where we're going. And so I wanted to talk about that in the space of trust, right? And so every time you might have heard like so many different types of trust. Every time there's like a new pain point, there's like this new type of trust that's created. And they're all pretty much similar trusts. Your trusts are always going to be revocable or irrevocable. That's pretty much it. They're going to fall under one of those umbrellas. And these new type of trusts that you hear about, all these different names, they're really a result of branding, right? Lawyers and firms want to make themselves, set apart. So they create these new types of trusts. So the one specifically I wanted to talk to you about, which is a new type of trust, is called a digital asset protection trust. And what it really is just that a trust that has particular clauses or particular language that is specific to protecting your digital assets, right? So we have things like, Bitcoins. We have, all other types of coins. We have, your digital real estate. We have all these other things that, now coming up in the digital space, we have to figure out how that's going to be passed on to the next generation, right? And one of the issues with that, if you want to look at it as an issue, is that, your keys, your access to all of these assets have to be highly securitized, right? You have to really keep it under lock and key, no pun intended. But you really don't want to make, anyone aware of that because it could get stolen. It could get, compromised. And so with these trusts that are created to sort of protect your digital assets, there has to be specific language and strategies on how to protect that information now, but then make sure that you get it to whomever it needs to benefit from it, your multiple millions of dollars at some point, right? So to get it to who needs to benefit from it, there has to be a trust that has language that speaks to these type of things. So just to kind of put you on notice that there is this type of thing, and wanting to make sure that there is a way that you're aware that there needs to be a way, there needs to be a plan ahead of time to be able to pass these on, because no one's going to know your keys, as you know. No one's going to know, what you have, in the digital world. I mean, if they're not going to know what you have here, like if they don't know the accounts you have at Chase, they're not going to know what you have in your digital wallets, right? So that's what these trusts are about. And so the last time we spoke about getting digital education, right? You need to go out there and educate yourself. So today we're going to do that together because my guest today is somewhat of a genius, in my opinion, in this area. He is immersed in this space of digital currencies, on the Metaverse, on all these new, I would say, technologies, right, that we're experiencing, and that's going to change the way that we live our lives. So he's here today. His name is Armando Pantoja. You're really going to learn a lot. I learned so much from just this conversation, and I know you're going to enjoy it just as much as I did. Hey, everybody. I am here with Armando Pantoja. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you said it right.
Okay. He is one of the, I would say geniuses in this space because I know nothing. So to me, you're a genius. And he's immersed in this space of NFTs, crypto, meta, everything you need to know about digital currency, the digital world. And he's here to talk to us. Welcome. Welcome.
How's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to
No
have
problem.
you. Yes. So Armando, I wanted to get into what got you so interested in this space. Maybe, you could tell me a little bit about your background and how you found yourself being at the center of this digital world.
Oh yeah, so I was originally a software engineer for almost 15 years total. So when I was in I studied at Austin State University in
Hmm.
Tennessee, software engineering from 2000 to 2005, and I graduated in 2005.
Okay.
So after that, I worked a little bit in the field. And around 2010, I wanted to go back and get my graduate degree, right? So I wanted to
Hmm.
study software security and with specialization in cryptology, right?
Okay.
And this, remember, Bitcoin came out in 2009.
Okay.
So I started in 2010. At the time, I knew nothing about Bitcoin. I never even heard of it, right? So
Hmm.
I get into school and I start hearing like some people talking about it because we were all studying cryptology, which
Right.
cryptology. That's what. So cryptocurrency is really just encrypted, encrypted currency, right?
Okay. So that
So
was
I
a
start
thing.
hearing about
That
it and
was
stuff like that.
Sorry. That was a
Go ahead.
thing back then already. Like it was just like the encryption part of it that you were studying.
The encryption's
Mm,
been around for like 30 years, 40 years, since
okay.
the 60s, maybe even before that, because they were encrypting messages back in the 40s at the end of World War II.
Oh, really?
Computer messages, back then. Yeah. So cryptology's been out it's even before computer.
Oh, wow.
It's a cryptology is just it's a method of encrypting messages. Like,
Hmm.
if I'm going to send you a message, it's the algorithms or the way that I'm going to encrypt the message, right?
Okay.
Even like back, even like, remember the Navajo talkers? It's a movie about that, about where they
Hmm.
would, in World War II, they have Navajo people would speak to each other in Navajo, and that was the way they could move messages back and forth.
Oh,
So the
okay.
third party couldn't understand. That's a form of cryptology, right? So, but computerized cryptology started like in the 60s, the study of it or whatever. So it's been a long time, right?
Hmm.
But the cryptocurrency just took that already existing framework and applied it to the currency,
Mm.
right? How to encrypt stuff, how to make it safe, how to make it secure. So they came out 2009, and I was already into it, and I started looking into it, right? So, and everybody was talking about it, and I was going. It was not that much information about it, so I went online and I was in this forum, and I figured out how to buy Bitcoin, right? So I bought
Okay.
it. I think I paid like $40, $50 for the first ones, and I bought it like four
Wow.
or five of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, so and then that's the first time I got scammed, right? So it's like I was, in college.
Right.
I was a desperate college student. I didn't have a lot of money.
Hmm.
So I was like, man, so somebody online on a forum told me they could take that money and then double it and give it back to me, right?
Hmm.
So and I did it, of course, but they didn't have it.
Didn't
They just
work.
took the
Yeah.
money. but that made me want to learn more, right? Because I'm like, well, I was like, man, he got me, but I'm
Hmm.
gonna make sure this don't happen again. So I started studying as much as I could about it, started learning more about it,
Hmm.
and that started my journey to where I'm at today.
Wow. So because you were already in this like engineering space, it wasn't like a scary thing for you. Because a lot of people are like,
No.
this is not going to last. This is not something that's going to be, real. It's not going to take over. It's not the next wave. So how come you were so convinced even so early on?
Because I mean, the currency part of it is like the top, like an iceberg, right? It's very, very tight top of it. That's the part that's above the water. So people see it
Mm,
as a currency. But if you dig deeper and you understand the technology behind it, how it works, how it
mm,
processes transactions,
mhm.
how it saves the transactions going forward. That's what I always tell people, man, make sure you understand and look into it and research it, because once you get a strong understanding of what it is
Mhm.
and the power behind it, you'll understand where it's going. But if you just see it at the top level as just an investment or something you put money into and get it out later, it does seem scammy.
Mhm. It
Like, what is that? But if you dig
Right.
deeper into it and you understand technology and everything behind it, then it makes sense as an investment or as a way that the world is going.
Mhm.
I kind of compare it back to like the internet in the late 90s. Like a
Right.
lot of people, it was people that said that, those people in the late 90s that said internet will never replace fax machines, ever.
Mm.
There's actually quotes of like major CEOs and stuff saying that, like,
Wow.
because it was just so new and it didn't really, it was so early that people just couldn't see the future applications of it.
Right.
So that's the same thing. Bitcoin's been out 10 years, and it seems like a long time. 11 years, yeah, almost 13 years actually. But in technology-wise, that's not that long, because I
Mhm.
mean, digital cameras, for example, Kodak created the first digital camera in the mid 70s, right?
Okay.
So how long did it take society as a whole to really
Wow.
embrace and use digital cameras? In the early 2000s, it was like 30 years later.
Right. And
So
it's
in
really
cell
just
phones,
now
remember?
becoming part of every day. I mean, within the
Exactly.
last couple of years. Mhm.
And like I said, digital music was out in the late 70s. Like MP,
Mhm.
we just got, used to around in the last 10, 15 years away
Mhm.
from CDs and stuff. And what else was it? It was cell phones, right? I mean,
Hmm.
remember back in the 80s and
Yes.
70s, people had those big cases, those suitcases with
Right.
cell phones. It took us 30 years before it became part of our everyday life.
Right.
We don't see that part of it because it's hidden from us, right? We don't
Hmm.
see it. All of a sudden, we just wake up one day and it's all around us. And we say,
Right.
"Oh man, where did cell phones come from?" But now all that development was being done behind the scenes and behind closed doors, and it just seems to us that it came out of nowhere. So
Right.
like Bitcoin may take 20 years before it becomes, it's already been out 13. It may take another 10 years before it's made really truly mainstream.
Hmm. And do you think that there will be so like is this the ride, or do you think there's going to be a situation where it crashes, like say for instance like the .com and things like that? I know Bitcoin tends to go up and down and things like that, but do you think like no, we're on the ride?
Yeah, so there's a predictable cycle with Bitcoin, really,
Hmm.
and crypto in general, because all cryptos are priced in Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin falls, they all fall. When Bitcoin goes up, they all go up,
Okay.
more or less.
Hmm.
That's economic. It's not always exact, but more or less.
Okay.
So Bitcoin has what's called a halving every 4 years, and what the halving is that that Bitcoin, the way that the creators of Bitcoin decided they were going to create scarcity.
Hmm.
Anything that has value has to have some kind of scarcity to it. Gold, diamonds, oil, anything, right, has to have some type of scarcity,
Hmm.
or otherwise, if everybody can get it, it's worthless, right? So it has to have some kind of scarcity and rarity.
Hmm.
So with a digital currency, of course, you could just create as many as you wanted, and then there wouldn't be any scarcity to it. So the creator of Bitcoin decided he was going to create scarcity by doing what's called the halving. So
Hmm.
the way he did it is that every 10 minutes or so many Bitcoins get created through the system. The overall, Bitcoin
Every 10
system,
minutes,
mining
you said?
system. Every 10 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
there's a certain amount that gets created, right? So you go back to 2020, it was 12 and a half Bitcoins created every 10 minutes. Boom,
Hmm.
going to the market, right? But in 2020, 2000 May of 2020,
Hmm.
that supply was cut in half, and it happens every 4 years in Bitcoin. So
Okay.
now there's 6.25 every 10 minutes,
Okay.
roughly every 10
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. Hmm.
So whenever that happens, it's normally an 18-month cycle in which Bitcoin price rises. Because of
Hmm.
course, if you cut the supply of anything, what happens? Like right now, if we woke up in the morning and they said the oil that comes out of the ground in the Middle East is being cut in half tomorrow, all of a sudden the price is going to go up
Right.
sky high the next day.
Hmm.
So in Bitcoin, it's a predictable cycle because every 4 years they do that.
Okay.
So it's just like gold coming out of mines, or the way oil comes out of the ground. If it's cut in half, the price has to go up to match that. So in Bitcoin, the last one was in May of 2020. The
Hmm.
next one's in March of 2024 right now.
Okay.
So every 4 years this happens. And then it's an 18-month cycle in which the price of Bitcoin rises a lot. And then it slows down and goes down. Then it kind of levels off for another 18 months. Then it goes up again after the next half. This is the third cycle,
Hmm.
and 2024 will be the fourth cycle.
Okay. So it's not so much that it's going to, crash in a sense, but because of the way that it's set up or was created, that it's going to continue to have high and low. So similar like to the stock market, except on a different
Yeah.
measurement. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the stock market, right? The stock market has cycles like that too.
Hmm. That's
But it's
interesting.
not predictable as Bitcoin because it doesn't have it's not hard coded in the code,
Hmm.
like Bitcoin is.
So does that like make it easily manipulative because we kind of know, I guess once people educate themselves on it, if everyone knows like the cycles and things, how does that sort of help the market?
That's the thing about it is that hardly anybody knows this, and that's
Hmm.
that's why I try. That's one of the biggest things I try to educate people on is that process, because if you understand that process, you can see what's coming right now.
Hmm.
And like on my Instagram, like I was telling people that was coming, and I was even showing people that I'm investing money into it now because I'm expecting this to happen over the next 18 months, and it's
Right.
exactly what happened, right?
Hmm.
Because I knew what was coming over those 18 months, and I'm glad a lot of people saw that because it
Hmm.
opened a lot of people's eyes to how to predict what's coming next with Bitcoin.
Right.
So the thing about it is that like even if everybody knew it, I mean, it's the same thing with gold. Every day, less and less gold comes out of the ground because it's only so much you can find,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So it's the same that was created in Bitcoin to kind of match what another like gold or oil or anything else would be. Oil, the supply of oil is dropping. The supply of gold is dropping. The supply of diamonds is dropping. It's not as
Right.
predictable,
Hmm.
but it's slowing down over time because we're finding all the deposits, and it's harder and harder and more expensive to find more deposits every year. So
Wow.
Bitcoin kind of did that to match those kind of markets.
I understand. So you said that you kind of got into the space after college or while you were, studying cryptology. And so did you just continue going with it, or were you doing other things in the midst of it? Like, how did you get to where you are now?
Okay, so I started studying it then. I was in grad school.
Mhm.
So I actually never finished grad school. I dropped out early to start a company, right?
Okay.
So I started a software company, and during that time, I was actually like the first. I was first software company in all of Florida to accept Bitcoin. And I
Oh,
was actually one
wow.
of the first companies in the country to accept Bitcoin. There's a
Mhm.
article out like since 2013 that you can find it. I was like one of the first ones ever.
Mhm.
Uh, but uh, but it was more popular in Europe and Asia back then. It wasn't
Okay.
really that popular in the U.S. yet. So all the stuff was happening over there, really.
Mhm.
So I'll tell you the story is that during that time I didn't know about the cycles back then. It was only
Okay.
one cycle. The cycle didn't happen yet because
Right.
it was three cycles. When the third one,
Mhm.
so Bitcoin went up, and I was buying it or whatever. So it went from like $80, $70 all the way up to 1,000.
Mm.
And then a big exchange got hacked called MT Gox. It was the
Mhm.
only Bitcoin exchange that existed at the time. That was the only place you could buy Bitcoin online.
Okay.
So a hacker hacked into this and stole $50 million worth of Bitcoin, which was a lot back then because
Wow.
Bitcoin price was like $80 a coin. But yeah, I think it was
Mhm.
1,000 back then. Still, that's a lot of Bitcoin.
Right.
So at then, everybody said that Bitcoin was insecure and it's not going to last. So at that time, I just said, well, it's over.
Okay. Okay.
This is 2013. I was like, well, I guess that's over.
Right.
So I kind of forgot about it for 2 years. Like, I was like, well, it's over.
Mhm.
And then like 2015, I started hearing about it again, like coming back up and stuff. And then I was like, well, I'm going to start looking into this again, right? So and I
Right.
started buying some other cryptos called Ethereum or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you how I learned about the site. So Ethereum came out. Remember, only one cycle happened back then.
Okay.
It was only
Yes.
had one.
Mhm.
So the other cryptos came out, and then the same kind of thing happened. Like the price went up a lot, and then one of the coins got hacked, and then
Mhm.
people said it's over. So I
Right.
sold all my coins, and I gave up again, right?
Oh, man,
And
I know
then
that hurts.
the third cycle came, and I was like, nah, it's not. I'm going to do this again. So
Uh-huh.
the third time in 2017, I started I
Mhm.
started investing, and I said, nah, it's not going to happen again. I saw it twice, and I
Mhm.
know it's coming the third time. And I made a lot of money in 17, 18,
Mhm.
and I made a lot of money this cycle. So yeah, so now I'm not going to let that happen again. But yeah, but yeah, it's just I just saw the cycles happen, and I've been in
Right.
so long that I kind of predict, able to see what's coming. And I know even like at the top of this cycle, right? What
Mhm.
happens at the top of cycles? And I actually researched it, right? Because
Right.
that's true in like financial markets too. Is that whenever you have it's called the market cycle. There's four phases. One is
Mhm.
accumulation phase. It's markup, distribution, and markdown.
Mhm.
So in those phases, right, accumulation is where the rich people normally buy, the elite, the banks, and everything. That's when nobody's talking about it. That's right after
Okay.
a crash.
Mhm.
That's right after everything is quiet, and everybody's saying it's over, it's done, it's never coming back. You'll hear news articles about that. And then
Mhm.
the markup phase is when it starts coming back slowly, right?
Okay.
And these two phases is when the rich and elite buy. In the first two phases, distribution phase comes when the average person starts buying.
Mm.
All the hype has gotten out. Everybody starts hearing about it. But in the third phase, the rich people start getting out at the beginning of the third, beginning of the end of the second, beginning of the third. So when the
Okay.
average person starts buying it, they're buying it from the elite and stuff that bought it in the first place.
I got
So
it.
they're selling it because they know a crash is coming. So the next phase is a crash.
Mm.
And then the whole four phases start over again. So once it crashes all the way down, the elite and the banks start buying again. And it goes back up through those four phases.
Wow.
So I learned all of that. Now and the smart people are buying with the banks and the rich and the elite. The
Mhm.
people who don't know any better, are buying on emotion. And emotion is
Right.
the highest in the third phase, in the distribution phase.
Mhm.
So that phase is when the average person gets in. That's why they keep losing money.
Right.
And that's in all markets. That's in real estate. That's in the stock market, and that's also in crypto.
Yeah, no, that's really good information. And I was going to say, it sounds like exactly what happens in the stock market, what happens in the real estate
Yeah,
market, which we've seen, in shorter cycles, but a few times over already. So
yeah. You
you,
hear everybody making money, and you jump in.
yeah,
And you're like, oh,
and it's too
but
late.
it's too late then at that point.
Right. It's too late to make any real money, and you probably get hurt, going in at that
Yeah,
point.
and a lot of people get hurt because they jump in the wrong cycle
Hmm.
because it's all emotion based.
Right. So you talked a lot about Bitcoin, but from what I understand from like how you've been teaching us online, um, that it's not that Bitcoin is on the blockchain, and that is what's really housing all of this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so the blockchain is a system in which it records the transactions.
mm,
Like if I send you one Bitcoin, it has to be recorded somewhere. So the blockchain is a system in which is recorded.
mm,
So that's the power of Bitcoin. It's not really the actual the coin itself. It's the power. So Bitcoins don't exist anywhere but on the blockchain. It's not like
mm,
I don't have it's no such thing as having Bitcoins on your phone. People think that, but it's not true.
mm.
All Bitcoins exist in that blockchain. It's just a ledger. It's just a ledger, like
Okay.
a gigantic Excel worksheet, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. It's just that all your Bitcoins exist as a ledger. A universal like distributed ledger.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they exist on. So when I have Bitcoins on my wallet, all I do is I have access to that blockchain, right?
Okay.
I have access to it. I can move money around or whatever, but it's no such thing as having Bitcoins on your phone or anywhere else.
Right. And so in addition to Bitcoin, or Bitcoin is one of the many coins that are out there. And I know that there's other things being built, or I'm very novice, right? So that's why I'm taking these baby steps. And so the next level, or the next layer, is what we've been hearing about, is NFTs. And so how does this sort of either change the game, or how does this, affect us and will affect us going forward?
So, my opinion is that whenever a new technology comes out,
Mm-hmm.
it's always trying to find a reason to exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like even with the internet when it first came out, I don't know, if you remember, I'm sure you do, when it first came out in the late
Yeah.
90s.
I'm not as young as I
Exactly
look.
how old you are. When it first came out,
Uh-huh.
like I remember when I was so excited when they first put the internet in our classrooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like a typing class or some computer class. After we finished our work, we were able to use the internet. So
Mm-hmm.
I was so excited. And then I realized quickly that it wasn't but so much you could do on there.
Right.
It's like look up a bunch of pages and you're like, what else? There's nothing else to do, right?
Right.
So and then you're like, oh, it's like it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of like that's when technology first came out. It's like no reason. It's trying to find a reason to exist. So the internet first, it was a bunch of pages of information.
Mm-hmm.
There's no search engines. If your search
You
engines
just had to
came later,
know. Yeah.
you have to know the exact page. And
Right.
like I'd go to like NBA.com and I would go to like somewhere else. And now there's really nowhere else for me to go.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'd go like to a news article page and that's it. The search engines came out and that made it a lot easier. Then it's moved on and on and on. Now we're at like Web 2.0 with social media, Instagram, all this stuff. And now it's kind of like finding a true reason to exist in society.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how the NFT things are going to be, right? Is that right now with the images of goats and stuff, all that stuff is probably not going to last, to be honest.
Okay.
But because it's normally when things first come out like this, is that it's trying to find a reason to exist. And a lot of times people don't know, it doesn't know why it's going to exist yet. And these weird stuff will start happening. But like I said, those pictures, NFT picture stuff is probably not going to last. But the real power of the NFT is the power to prove ownership of digital goods, right? So we can apply, as a lawyer, right? That.
Yeah.
We could one of the biggest problems in society is proving ownership of stuff.
Right.
Like, do I own this? Who owns that? When did you buy? All of this stuff. That's a lot of the legal system is trying to prove who owns this, who owns it, whatever.
Right.
So NFTs give us a tool to be able to do that, without being disputed, right? Is that even like a car, right? A car title can be written as an NFT.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything that's digital right now can be written as an NFT. And the thing about with the blockchain technology is that it's indisputable who owns this, because the blockchain technology cannot be changed, altered, or deleted.
Right.
So if I buy something from you now, like a car today, and it gets written to the blockchain, that's undeniable proof that I bought this on this certain day.
Right.
And it's saved forever, right?
Mm-hmm. And to transfer it, you're the owner, and you're the only person who can do that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only person that could possibly have it, right? Because on this day, it was written to the blockchain that I purchased this NFT, which represents a car or whatever, on this day, right? And the other power of NFT is the ability to fractionalize it, which means that, for example, if I bought a house and I can store it on the blockchain, I can take that NFT and break it up into 1,000 parts and sell each part off, right, to people. And now we all own that house, right? As in like maybe 100 people, maybe a family, maybe. And then as the house gets profit, I can use the NFT to distribute the profits evenly to the people depending on how much they own.
Wow, I've never heard that explained that way. That's actually
yeah. So that's the most powerful part of NFT is the fractionalization of it. Is that I can take almost any asset and I could break it up into several parts, so we all can benefit from it. right? So that's one of the biggest that's one of the biggest benefits of NFTs is that
Mhm.
the ability to do that.
And then it doesn't
But I mean, that's
matter.
not really being explored a lot now.
Yeah, does it with that fractionalization, when say one person wants to sell a portion, that doesn't affect anybody else? If you know that
Uh,
part. Mhm.
they can only sell their piece of it at that point.
Okay.
So if we all own like a piece of like expensive artwork, like $1 million piece of artwork, I can only sell my piece. It doesn't affect anybody else because I can
Mhm.
sell my 10% to somebody else, but it doesn't affect the other owners.
That's interesting. And so, I wanted to so with NFTs, how do you envision or recommend that people get involved in that? Because we're hearing more about, buying coins. You should definitely buy. We sort of understand why we should do that. Do you think people should be buying NFTs or should be creating NFTs, like in your opinion?
Yeah, I think you should definitely learn more about it and
Hmm.
learn because what's gonna happen is that after all these pictures and stuff go away, these digital images and all this stuff, it's probably a lot of it's gonna go to zero. It's my opinion,
Hmm.
and it happens all the time. Like even if you go back to 2017, there was a concept called ICO
Hmm.
in which it was the same. It was almost the same thing except it was under a different concept. And a lot of those stuff went to zero. And there was a lot of excitement about it. People were putting all this money into it. And it was crypto based too.
Hmm.
And then a lot of those companies went to zero. So
Okay.
even in this one, uh, even with this particular one, with the NFT stuff, a lot of those are going to go to zero. That's just how it works. It's not like some of them are going to do good. Some of them are going to make a lot of money, but like the vast majority of them are going to go to zero.
Right.
And people are going to lose a lot of money. But that's how it happens in technology, right? Is that even in the
Hmm.
dot-com boom in the late 90s, a lot of people lost a lot of money, because like a lot of those companies failed.
Hmm.
So with technology, that's what happens a lot of times because a lot of money goes in and only a few actual projects or companies do well.
Okay. And I'm hearing a lot about like NFT games now. Like they're creating games, and I don't even know conceptually how this works, but like creating games within NFTs or creating NFTs for games. Like how does that work? And don't you think that will continue on because like gaming is such like a big field?
Yeah, I mean, NFTs can be. I think what I may be wrong, but I think you're referring to like maybe the characters on the games.
Perhaps.
And maybe like
Right.
there was a game called I forget the name of it. It was like the NFT. This was way before. This was actually like 2 or 3 years ago.
Hmm.
There was I forget the name of it, but there was like Pokemon, right? But it
Hmm.
was it was
Hmm.
a similar game like Pokemon, but you know how you have to capture Pokemon and whatever. So each
Yeah.
each one of those monsters, whatever, were represented by NFT, and they could fight each other.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so it could be something like that. But NFTs can only store a small amount of data,
Mm.
right? It can't like because a lot of times this is how NFT works, right?
Hmm.
Is you take some kind of digital good, or it's like it could be an image, it could be a video, it could be a music, and you have to do what's called a hash on it because
Hmm.
you can't take the whole video won't fit on the blockchain. It's too big,
Okay.
or even a picture is too big to fit on the blockchain. Blockchain can only fit like a small amount of characters.
Hmm.
It won't like an image could be like 3 megabytes. Sorry,
Hmm. Hmm.
or maybe more. And the blockchain can only hold a few kilobytes worth of data. So that won't work. So what happens is you take this image, you do what's called hashing it, which
Hmm.
you create a string of characters that represents this music or picture or whatever, and
Hmm.
then you store that. It's almost like a VIN number on a car, right? The VIN
Ah.
number represents the car, right?
Hmm.
So you take that and it's a string of characters that represents this. So and there's no other string of characters that, like this has to represent this, right?
Okay.
This is the way the hash works. So it's like a VIN number. It uniquely represents whatever this art is.
Hmm.
And you store that on the blockchain, and then and that's how you have to do it, right?
Hmm.
And then you can fractionalize and do all that stuff with that data. But so a video game couldn't really fit on the blockchain like that. But you can do like characters in the video games, and
Okay.
you can hash those and then put those on the blockchain. That's how that would work. But I don't know, like the whole
Okay.
video game wouldn't work.
So, all right. So how is this? So now I know you also talk about Web 3.0. How you mentioned we're on Web 2.0, and then now there's a Web 3.0. So what does that mean to us, and how are people using that?
And so okay, so Web 1.0 was mostly about like just looking up information online. So we
Hmm.
were like like pages, and we would you basically like search for stuff and look it up. It was just like basically pages of data.
Mhm.
Right? Web 2.0 is more about the communication, like the social media, Twitter, Facebook, be able to talk back and forth. The users put out most of the content.
Mhm.
The first Web 1.0 was like the most of the companies put out the information. Web 2.0, the
Mhm.
users put it out, right? So Web 3.0 is more about decentralization, right? Is that like right now, for example, Instagram, most people you have to go through Instagram to be able to use social media, right?
Mhm.
Instagram is the central power. They're the ones that control everything. They
Right.
can boot people off if they want, so they can do whatever they want, delete pages. And that's happened a lot,
Mhm.
So that's centralized. Decentralized is when the users not only put the content out, but the users also have control of the systems, the
Mm.
platforms.
Okay.
Right now, Instagram has control of the platform, but the users put out most of the content. But
Right.
Web 3.0 is, but the users have control of through just decentralization, have control of the platform and also put out all the content.
Okay.
So that's where we're moving towards, is that decentralization of those platforms.
And how does one like access that? Like, how would I put out content on Web 3.0 without Instagram, without, anybody else?
So that's how Bitcoin works. Bitcoin is
Mm.
decentralized. So
Okay.
everybody all over the world runs what's called nodes, like mining nodes, right? So
Mhm.
that means that each person, for more or less, they have a small part of the system all over the world, right?
Mhm.
So Bitcoin is no third party running Bitcoin. There's no the central power running it. It's completely decentralized. So it's a platform in which we can exchange money back and forth that's decentralized, that nobody owns, nobody controls.
Mhm.
So that's what the entire web will be like in maybe 10 or 15 years. The whole web will be like that.
Mhm.
To where like it'll be a platform, a social media platform that's decentralized. So we'll all be incentivized to like just control, like you would just have a small part of it running on your computer.
Ah,
And
okay,
it'll be
okay.
thousands and thousands of people all over the world to do that. So you'll get some tokens or you'll get some crypto
Mhm.
just to run those nodes all over the world. So we'll all be able to take pieces of the profits. We'll all be able to be able to contribute, and we'll all be able to be part of the platform.
Wow. It sounds incredible. Like, I mean, it's really hard to conceptualize how we would all be, taking part of this and playing a part of it. So what if someone doesn't know any of this and is not participating in this? Is this like a very different life? Like, how do you envision all of this shaping the way we live? This may be a little bit deep, but if you have an
No,
opinion
I
on
mean,
it.
the thing about most people is that most people probably won't take part, like Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Most people just send Bitcoin and receive it. They don't take part in the actual like platform or the
Mhm.
nodes and stuff. Those are only more technical people that do that.
Mhm.
So it'll be like you don't have to like be part of the platform. You can still consume it.
Okay.
Like most people consume Bitcoin, but like I don't run a node yet. I'm gonna run them, but I don't run them yet.
Okay.
And I use Bitcoin every other day. So you don't have to be part of that decentralization of the platform, but you can't. It's not about like us all having to do it. It's that we all have the ability to do it,
Mm.
and it's decentralized. So that means that nobody has the power to like reverse transactions or do anything like that. So it just gives more power to the people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what makes you so like fired up in like sharing this information? Because you share a lot of stuff. You
I
talk
mean,
about this
I
all the
just think
time.
it has the power to. What'd you say?
No, no, no. I was just saying you talk about it all the time and you seem very passionate about it. And so what has you so fired up in sharing it?
I just like I really just like the power of cryptocurrency. It's changed my life a lot.
Hmm.
Being able to see it early, and I know it has the power to change people's not only their wealth but also their mindset.
Hmm.
And ability to create wealth. And it's one of the things that like because it's decentralized, because it's like Bitcoin was like created for the people.
Hmm.
Traditionally, I think that like the banks and elite and the way that the financial system is set up is stacked against us.
Hmm.
It's stacked against like people that are already rich, right? It's very
Right.
difficult for somebody to, in poverty to become rich. Now, once you become rich, it's easier to become richer,
Hmm.
but it's hard for you to go from that first step. It's almost impossible, right?
Hmm.
But it can be done, but it's very, very difficult at first. And
Hmm.
after you get past a certain level, it's easy after that. But that's what I'm saying is that crypto gives you an avenue to do that. Doesn't have all those blocks and doesn't have all that regulation. That doesn't have all those rules against you.
Hmm.
Because once it's so new into it was built with that way to allow people to have access to things they never had before. Like anybody can create a token. Anybody, like I
Hmm.
say, anybody can create an NFT. This is never possible before. If you go back 15 years ago, there's no way you could possibly ever just create a crypto not a crypto, but a currency out of nothing.
Right.
It was impossible, right? But now we can do it in like 30 minutes. You create your own crypto or your own currency or your own NFT, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like before, like to create something similar to an NFT back in the day, you had to have a whole team of lawyers
Right.
to do it. Now we can just create these stuff, you know, instantly,
Mm-hmm.
and they're defendable in court.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest, I guess, draw for me is that it seems like it's a way, like you said, to level the playing field. Like, because the banking system and all that stuff was created when no one knew what was going on. No one knew that this type
Yeah,
of thing was a thing that was going to make, you know, families very rich. So now everyone is really at the ground level and can actually take part in it for the most part. And that's the really exciting part is that it's going to level the playing field across the board for everyone.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And that's why I guess I'm so passionate about it. Is that
Mm-hmm.
it's so many people can just do so well, especially, and it's not goes past just investing in it or learn about it. Is that even the technology part is so new that almost anybody, if they put their mind to it, they can become experts in it in 2 years. It's only like,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, like the blockchain development and all that stuff didn't start until 2015.
Okay.
So I mean, the most expert people on the world only got 6 years experience.
Wow.
That's the most you can possibly have. That means you started day one when it came out, and that's the most you can have. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm saying is that if somebody got into it now, a young person or a person that, you know, and they learned 3 years, they got half as much experience as the biggest experts in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, it's not like, it's so new that people, and there's new cryptos coming out all the time that you can, like the big ones too, that you can
Mm-hmm.
get in and learn about those early. You're an expert in that. There was an
Wow.
article about a woman on CNN, I think 2 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and she quit her job 2 years ago, and she was making $80,000 a month consulting on blockchain projects.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because
Wow.
she learned 2 years ago and just put all her effort into it, and then they pay like $400 an hour for blockchain consulting now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
because so few people really truly understand it, and it's not that many people on Earth that
on
actually
Earth.
like can do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you provide consulting to companies or?
No, because I have my own company and we write blockchain software projects. So between that and Instagram, I don't have time really
Oh,
to
okay.
do it. But I get asked all the time. I don't have the time right now.
Yeah. Do you want to
But
talk about, tell me
like
a
I said,
little bit about your company? What you
so
guys
our
do?
company's called Quant Index, and
Mm-hmm.
we develop what's called emerging technologies. That's
Mm-hmm.
crypto and AI, artificial intelligence. So
Okay.
we got 2 projects out. One's called Hire Match, and that's a cryptocurrency for the recruitment industry.
Oh, okay.
So we've been working on that for about 2 years, and then we got a couple other apps that are coming out that are related to AI and cryptocurrency. So I
Okay.
spend a lot of time with that too. So I'm kind of like, you know, I don't have a lot of time to do this
Yeah.
consulting stuff. So.
And so you're immersed in the space. You got to know the space. And so it just allows you
Yeah,
to
I
sort
was
of
at
do
the
both.
blockchain conference yesterday and today.
Okay.
I just got back this morning. Yeah, I
Awesome.
mean, sorry, on Monday and Tuesday.
And then this conference is for just people who want to understand it or people who are already working in the space?
It's for everybody. It's mostly people. It's a lot of investors,
Hmm.
young people that just started, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of also technical people there. It was about 2,000 people total.
Okay. Wow. And it's an annual event.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest ones.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to talk about before we sort of end things here today, I wanted to talk about the digital real estate and how that is becoming, you know, a new thing. Like, how does one take part in digital real estate? What is it exactly? And how do we, you know, not miss out on, you know, buying Fifth Avenue or whatever it is?
So the digital real estate is it's the concept called the metaverse, right?
Okay.
Concept of the metaverse has really been out for like 20 or 25 years. It started in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch some 90s movies, you actually see some beginnings of it. There's one movie called The Lawnmower Man, The Matrix. He's even in that kind of like that same school of thought. And it's like several movies in the 90s that the concept was actually termed in 1992. It was a book that was out.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the name of the book, but that was the first time that word was ever used.
Okay.
So, and then during the 90s, it was like conceptual. And then around the mid 2000s, 2005, there was a game called Second Life.
Okay.
And that was like the first major attempt at a metaverse. And there's a documentary on Netflix called Life 2.0 that kind of talks about it. And
really?
I encourage a lot of people to look at it. Yeah, because
I'm gonna look at it.
there's a young lady on that documentary And she was making like in the mid six figures, like developing real estate back in 2005.
Mm.
And she was doing digital clothes. She was doing, and one of the problems she had,
Mm-hmm.
and this is going to be this is going to be like fit right into what we've been talking about,
Uh-huh.
is that she built an entire empire on this app called Second Life,
Mm-hmm.
where people would go into and they would live, of course, their second lives. They would
Okay.
have jobs, they would meet friends, they would have real estate, they would rent houses, all of this stuff. And she made all this money, and all of a sudden, some other users came on, and they just were copying her stuff, like her houses and her shirts and her clothes.
Okay.
And of course, she can't make as much money because people are copying her goods and
Right.
spreading them through the world. So NFTs would fix that now. Back then, because NFTs would say, she could say, look, this is mine. Nobody else can copy it because I have an NFT attached to it. But back then, it was just digital. Somebody could just copy it like they can copy a picture on a desktop or copy a file.
Right. Okay.
So she started like losing a lot of her money, and she had to like start over from scratch. And that was in the mid 2000s, right? So that game eventually it went away.
Mm-hmm.
And then the metaverse kind of went away. You know, it got real quiet. Now it's coming back. Now that Facebook has jumped into it,
Right.
changed their name to Meta. And now everybody's talking about it again. And the new iterations like Sandbox and Decentralization are out. And then the real estate rush is back on, right? To buy this real estate in these new places.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, the concept's already been proven, 20 years ago, almost, 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
in that game called Second Life. So it's the way it is that they have these plots of lands, and each land plot you can get a state or a parcel.
Mm-hmm.
And an estate is just a group of parcels. A parcel is a smaller part of a state.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of these parcels is represented by an NFT. It's almost like a graph paper, right? It's like these little squares, and each one is represented by an NFT to show that you own it. So if I buy one, the NFT is registered as that I bought it on this particular day, and then everybody knows it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like any other real estate, is that the closer you are to certain, landmarks, other people's houses or whatever, the higher the price is.
Mm-hmm.
The farther you are away, the lower the price is, and then it just goes up from there.
And so well, you said a lot there. I think that's fascinating. There was another game, I was trying to remember the name of it, where people would like have their whole like lives and build houses, and I can't remember what it's
World
called.
of Warcraft was one.
Warcraft, but there's one in particular. That's not the name that I was thinking of, but
The Sims.
Sims, yeah. Like similar, something conceptually to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's fascinating, and I always think about the Matrix. Like when people talk about this stuff, I'm thinking about the Matrix, where in real life they were like hooked up to a machine, and they were just like in this world, living this whole other life and having these real experiences. So it's fascinating, and I do believe that that one day that's going to be like what we're seeing in the near future. But I wanted to.
And that's what.
No, go ahead.
That's what Elon Musk is working on. That's people don't understand about the metaverse, is that right now people say it doesn't make sense, right? I mean, to be honest, it doesn't. Like, if I went back to like the mid 90s and I said, hey man, I'm gonna write an app so you can order food online, people would have said, how is that gonna work? I mean, like
Right.
it wouldn't have made sense because of the technology at the time. But people that are looking ahead could have made a lot of money.
Right.
So it's the same thing now, is that if we look at the technology now, if you look at the metaverse now, the graphics are cartoony.
Mm-hmm.
That you can put on a VR headset, but it's kind of clunky and all this stuff. And it doesn't make it kind of like, it's weird now. I'll be honest with you. It just doesn't seem like it's like, like what is this?
Mm-hmm.
But you got to remember, as time goes on, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be, first of all, the graphics going to get way better. It's going to be photorealistic graphics, which means it's not going to be cartoon. It's going to be just like what we're looking around, like photorealistic.
Okay.
As the processes get better, as the technology gets better, it's going to be like real. Secondly, is that like Elon Musk is working on like Neuralink and all this technology that you put on a headset and it connects to your 5 senses.
Wow.
So all 5 senses are in the metaverse. Now it starts to make more sense. And then number 3 is that this is like my opinion, is that over time, artificial intelligence is going to take over almost all of like the jobs that we have, almost every job over the next 20, 30 years. So humans will be left with a lot of leisure time.
Okay.
So now if you put all those 3 together, the metaverse seems like a good place for everybody to be all of a sudden. Yeah.
Because you're saying like, who's going to create the luxuries that we have here in life right now? Where what are we going to do? That sounds a little scary.
Yeah, it is. It sounds scary, but like a lot of things do at first.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So just with the real estate, just to be clear, so like if someone wants to take part of this, because from what I'm hearing, it's somewhat of a frenzy right now, although there's not like that many people that really know and understand it. How does someone take part in buying a piece of real estate or seeking to buy something like that?
So you have to buy it in crypto, right?
Okay.
And each metaverse, there's not just one metaverse, there's several.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the biggest ones are Sandbox and Decentraland.
Okay.
So you have to buy these plots with their own currency. And one's sand
Mm-hmm.
for Sandbox and one mana for Decentraland.
Okay.
So you buy it, and you have to buy this currency, and you go in there and you buy the land with the currency. Then you can do two things. You can hold the land and hope that the price goes up, or you can actually develop the land.
Mm.
But what some people are doing is that they're buying the land and they'll hire developers to build buildings, advertising platform, all this stuff on the land, and they'll turn around and resell it for a higher price, or they'll use it and rent it out. Or some people are like building they'll buy this land and build like billboards on it. Then they charge for the billboards.
Wow.
Or they develop the land out so they can make money, either renting it out or reselling it at a higher price.
Wow. So just like in real world. So it's like you get in on the real estate game, advertising game, like everything that there is to be made money to make money with in the real world, you can be in on that in the metaverse now.
Exactly.
Wow. That's insane. All right. So just like if you were you woke up in a nightmare, right? You didn't know any of this stuff. How would you get started? Like, what would you tell someone to get started if you had to start over?
I would tell people to start with understanding the blockchain itself.
Okay.
Because that's where all this stuff's going to happen at. You have to understand the blockchain. It's not hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can go online, just look at easy explanation of blockchain. Just make sure you understand that part of it. Once you understand that part, everything else makes sense. You understand how NFTs can work. You understand how the metaverse can work. All these things you'll understand a lot easier once you understand how the underlying technology blockchain works.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would just slowly learn more about it. After I learned about blockchain, I learned about NFTs. Then I would move on and learn about the metaverse. So I would do it in that order. I would learn about the blockchain first, NFTs second, and then start learning more about the metaverse, the land, and what makes it valuable, what makes it not valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the three places I would start.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Armando. This was like very good information. I feel like I'm getting clarity on what's going on. So how can people find you if they want to, just learn from you or take part in what you have to offer?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram, Tall Guy Tycoon. I'm on Instagram, YouTube right now, LinkedIn. So it's all the same name. It's TALLGUYTYCOON.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. I appreciate
You're welcome.
having me on.
Of course.